Ya, no lo levante ya, está muerto. Sí, de acá de su cabeza, por favor. Dentro de la cabeza.
Necesitamos trabajo, necesitamos fuentes de trabajo. Y en las familias es una mesa vacía. Ya significa niños que no se sabe si van a ir a la escuela, porque a lo mejor es mejor mandarlos a vender picoleo, a trabajar. De aquí en adelante va a ser distinto. Sí se puede de otra manera. Vamos a escuchar al futuro presidente de Bolivia. Compañeras y compañeros, el problema número 1 de Bolivia es la crisis económica. Por eso vengo aquí a decir que tenemos un plan de emergencia para parar la crisis, que sí se puede salir de la crisis y pronto.
Hola, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo está? Gusto.
Señora, buenos días.
¿Puedo llamar a Mayor?
Sí.
¿Puedo llamar a Jeremy?
Ya, buenos días.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hey, Gunny, how are you?
Hi, I just, two things very quickly. I wanted to have some points related to the polls about what I should talk at each of these Lizzo stops, which we're going to do tomorrow.
You know, across every district, unemployment is the #1 problem.
Yeah.
Very little variation. Corruption is #2. Poverty almost uniformly #3.
People have a strong sense that we had more accomplishments in the past. So, I mean, there's some openings here.
Right.
Hey, going, one last thing. In terms of next week, I think you understand where we're going to be when I come down there. It's going to be challenging, but there's clearly enough time to turn around.
Okay, well, let's hope it works out. Next week, we can spend a lot of time on focus groups so you guys can go around and seeing if we can find a way that we can revert the situation, because otherwise it's going to be nothing to do.
Okay, Gunny.
As you know, we're a slave to strategy.
There's a firm called Greenberg, Carville, and Trump, which the idea is a full-service political consulting firm. We got involved in this campaign, and they hired the whole, what you call the GCS package, if you will. It was a kind of a international political consulting firm that comes to Latin America.
We choose and work with some of the most dynamic leaders on the face of the earth today, like Nelson Mandela, and Goni, and Clinton. It's progressive politics and foreign policy for profit. In a lot of Latin America, there is not an established tradition of listening closely to the people, especially of not listening to the poorest or indigenous populations. It's like, why would we ask those people what they think?
The whole thing we do, and why we tell people to hire us, is that we come in and listen very hard, very aggressively, you know, with no preconceptions.
We try to work for people who are modernizers, who want to use globalization to expand prosperity in their countries. That's how I viewed New Labour in Britain. That's, you know, how, we viewed Goni in Bolivia.
You asked whether it's fair to characterize us as an expression of American idealism, that we go into these other countries and try to help the democratic process. I hope so. I mean, in part, this is a business we do, and people to pay us to do this, so it's not volunteer and charity work. But for me and for my partners, we are in this because we not only believe in democracy, but a particular brand of democracy, which is progressive, social democratic, market-based and modern, but with broad benefits, and that's why we were in Bolivia.
So what went wrong?
Oh, look. What went wrong in the United States leading up to the Civil War? I mean, there are conditions that democracy ultimately can't deal with.
Welcome, and I want to compliment you on this report. Very good report that is terrifying. The only problem here is the biopsy. Is it terminal, or can we do something about it?
No. We don't have to change the way people perceive the country and the economy. What we have to change is what is at stake in the election.
What we'd like to start with is how to take any questions that come up, like the questions you got on TV this morning, and turn them to the message.
Always remember this. Every movie starts out and there's a setup. Then there's a conflict, and at the end there's a resolution. I'll read my children books of Winnie the Pooh, you know what I mean? And Tigger and Tiglet, you know what I mean? And somebody gets the honey and shit they bring in. This nation is now in a very precarious situation. We are surrounded by nations that are experiencing riots and coups d'etats. We are at a crossroads. Very simple. As you set up the Bolivian nation at a point of crisis, we're at a crossroads. Therein lies the conflict. And we are running because we bring to Bolivia at this time the skills and blah, blah, blah that are needed to save it from this dangerous period.
We have to talk about the polls. They're horrendous figures. They're 38 to 18 or to 16. So people just see, why are you even making an effort? The distance is too great.
We have more than enough time if we do it right. I think you need to paint this picture.
A little harder.
Yeah, start with how bad it is, and then take them to the point. You gotta understand, things could literally, this country could literally fall apart. It could get even worse.
It doesn't have to.
It doesn't have to. That's the choice we have.
Pobreza, desempleo, corrupción. Esto puede convertirse en un verdadero colapso. Alguien dice que las cosas no pueden ir peor, pero la realidad, sobre todo para la gente que sufre, las cosas sí pueden ser todavía peores. Por eso, la elección que viene es una de las más cruciales que vamos a enfrentar en nuestra vida. Es una elección para definir si vamos a mejorar nuestra vida o si podemos todavía empeorarla más. Tenemos un plan de emergencia para ello, para devolver el bonosol, aumentar el seguro materno infantil que Goni creó cuando fue presidente. Tengo además un poder irrevocable que Goni me ha dado para luchar contra la corrupción. No podemos darnos el lujo de escoger candidatos que pueden empeorar las cosas. Por eso, de verdad y desde el corazón les digo, Goni y yo tenemos la determinación y la posibilidad de hacer las cosas mejor. Sí se puede.
Okay, guys, help us out here. What do you think?
This is a message to your conscience. I think what made me feel very positive is to say that we are in a critical situation. If we're going to choose in these elections, we have to do a good job because we cannot continue as we are.
I'm just at the end of a focus group. This is a group, none of them are supporting Goni. One guy that broke in as soon as the ad was done before waiting for the comment period. He says, this is really a message to your conscience. One other thing, wouldn't it make sense to do a recut that maybe has a lot more rural images, you know, that we could put on the regional stations that have mostly rural audience?
Yeah, I think some big music behind it. This could be a very dynamic spot, have a real good feel. Bye-bye. I think the most important thing we can do is to be dedicated to this message, okay, and to figure out how we can make all of this paid media, television advertising, fit the frame. Okay, because I think if we're going to win this election, it's because we've chosen the right frame. The frame for us is, you know, crisis. I mean, we must be, that's our brand, as Stan was saying the other day. We must own crisis, and we must brand crisis. Who can deal with it, who has the capacity to deal with it, and Goni as the guy who has strength, you know, in the plan. Okay, now, If we're going to believe in that message, and I think we should make a commitment, we should bet the house on the message, okay? We should say this is what we're going to communicate to people. We must communicate it consistently. It must be communicated in our positive messaging. It must be communicated in our negative messaging. Really try to...
Secret is to frame all.
Yeah, and I think we can. You know, I really think there's a lot of opportunity here.
I'm going to start by a very important principle. Okay? There's no correlation between what the press is interested in and what politicians are interested in and what the voters are interested in. We should think that our message is spinach. Our only game, our only goal in this campaign is to feed the journalists with spinach, because we believe spinach is good for them. Spinach makes them healthy, spinach is good for them, spinach will make them grow, whatever you use to feed kids. Now, kids don't like spinach. They hate it. They don't want to hear us again, that we will fix the crisis and will fight corruption. They don't want to hear that we're going to get the money coming from selling the gas and move it into education. They want to know about the cheeseburgers. These are the stories behind the scenes. These are the political schemes that are running behind the parties. And I don't want in these morning meetings to talk about cheeseburgers and milkshakes and chocolate. I don't want to hear about it. It's bad for the health. Okay? Only spinach.
Carlos Mesa y yo hemos preparado un plan de emergencia. Para los ancianos, el bono sol.
Para los jóvenes, el concepto es sembrar gas en educación. Bolivia se ha convertido en el primer país en reservas de gas natural. Transformemos eso en educación primaria para todos nuestros niños.
También planteamos inversión pública para generar trabajo y para salir de la crisis económica. La economía tiene que ser manejado con mucha honestidad y con mucha seriedad. No es el momento para cambios radicales ni para experimentos irresponsables. Pero si somos serios, yo creo que podemos salir de la crisis económica y devolver esperanza al pueblo boliviano.
Typically, we test slogans, taglines for campaigns. And yes, it can be done, tested much, much better than some of the other stuff. For example, before we got there, the slogan that they were using, and by using I mean like writing all over the walls everywhere, okay? First time I went to La Paz, I saw Goni, the solution. That did not test very well at all. The solution, well, no, they thought he was the problem at that point in time. They hardly thought he was the solution. I mean, you can't make a claim to voters that they don't believe.
Que sí se puede y comenzar un nuevo día para Bolivia. Gracias, gracias.
If we can achieve the positioning where Goni is the one saying, yes, it can be done.
Sí se puede.
Offering specifics for how it can be done in a credible way, I think we can move people to our vision, to Goni's vision. So, si se puede, it's part of a much bigger manifestation of message that we're trying to, put out there in the course of the campaign, and I mean, hopefully will be effective.
Nuevamente comenzamos enfocando el conflicto en la problemática de los marxistas indígenas.
Esta es la última de las muchas marchas en los recientes meses. Los manifestantes demandan una reforma constitucional para una mejor representación gubernamental.
Es para llamar la atención, pero sobre todo para cuestionar este estado en que estamos viendo los pueblos indígenas campesinos en nuestro país, excluidos de la toma de decisiones políticas y económicas en nuestro país por decenas de años.
Otra noticia el día de hoy, el candidato a la presidencia, Evo Morales, abogó en favor de las recientes protestas como representante de los cocaleros de la región de Chapare.
El día de ayer, en una carta, pedimos una audiencia. Pero estas cosas, estos enfrentamientos vienen justamente por la mala aplicación de políticas económicas. Y queremos informar esta verdad porque se nos acusan de francotiradores, últimamente de terroristas. Y estamos acusados de terroristas, estamos acá para poder demostrar que es todo lo contrario. Y si no quiere escuchar a la oposición, bueno, nosotros no nos hacemos problemas porque nosotros tenemos ya el camino definido por dónde vamos a ir.
On the
campaign, what did you see as the main differences between Bolivia and the U.S.?
Well, I mean, you're trying to grapple in Bolivia and in a lot of the rest of Latin America with 500 years of, an indigenous majority who have been oppressed, denied political rights, denied economic rights, who are disproportionately poor, who still don't have full political representation. And so you're trying to deal with those stored up grievances and the fact they're still underrepresented in the political system. You're trying to deal with the grievances of sort of the have-nots of globalization who have, and not just recent globalization, but globalization when it started 400 and 500 years ago when all the silver was taken out of Potosi and the locals got upkas out of it. The problems of, regional divisions. You've got 2 of their 9 departments right now sitting on top of a huge treasure trove of natural gas, and the rest of the country that, feels like it's not going to benefit enough. So, I mean, huge divisions. And ultimately, it, took their democracy pretty much to the breaking point.
Y hay 2 castigos en la política. Uno es la mistura y la otra son los periodistas.
La primera copa de champán que he tomado en mi vida, y única, es en Zúrich cuando ganamos la altura. Y la segunda que voy a tomar en mi vida va a ser el día en que me posesione vicepresidente.
Esperemos estar ahí para brindar.
Hay gente que dice que Mario le está robando en realidad gente de donde el MNR había sacado antes, ¿no? Para la revolución del 52 y que apoyó en realidad todo lo que fue el gobierno de don Víctor Paz. ¿Usted qué opina?
Bueno, es un fenómeno muy especial porque es un fenómeno muy autoritario, porque los dirigentes tipo Evo y otros obligan a las comunidades a votar bajo cohesión, ¿no? Y nosotros vamos a cuestionar eso en la elección. Porque tú no puedes agarrar a una comunidad y decir, si no gano yo aquí, les voy a poner a los dirigentes de pollera y voy a castigar a la gente. No puede.
Ese era su primer bloqueo. A mí me dio miedo cuando me llaman de la zona sur y me dicen, en Cotacota hay campesinos de los cerros.
Y hemos ido a ver.
Hemos ido y nos han sacado a hundazo.
Los campesinos de Palca estaban levantados dispuestos a atacar la zona sur.
Ahí jamás sentimos miedo. Fue terrible.
Ahí está la lectura, pero no ahí está el paso a la propuesta. Y entonces ya nos damos cuenta dónde estamos, pero no sabemos qué hacer. Y quiénes piensan, ¿no? Entonces yo veo que ahí nos falta mucho porque los que piensan no conocen el país, no lo viajan, no lo experimentan, no lo palpan.
El presidente tiene que trabajar con sensibilidad, tiene que ser un presidente itinerante, que esté por todo el país recorriendo y escuchando a su pueblo. Ya no queremos ver más esos 800.000 niños trabajando en las calles, vendiendo pastillas, usando zapatos o lavando autos. Esa Bolivia tiene que ser la Bolivia del pasado, la Bolivia anacrónica. Cochabambinos, ustedes han permitido cambiar la historia de esta ciudad. Ahora les pido que me ayuden a trabajar y a transformar nuestra querida Bolivia para que vivamos con soberanía, con dignidad, con cariño.
In times of crisis like this, people are looking for hope. And when they're looking for hope, most of the time, a lot of them, except for your followers, will go to the new candidate. Okay? And we cannot let this feeling stay as it is at the moment. We have to change the dynamics. I want to talk about strategic issues. The first is Manfred Reiswehr. We have to start negative campaigns against him. We have to make him from clean to a dirty candidate. That's our task. I had a discussion with Carlos Sanxchez about it. Very personal. He has some stuff on him. He is going to do it through outside parties that are going to attack him. It's not going to come from us. At least that he's going to start to feel the pressure. So I told him, everything you do, it cannot be connected to us in any way at the moment. Once we have the research and we know what's the best message, we'll make it official. Second, every day you have only one public event. This is called the photo of the day. If we make 2 events, what will be picked up is the least important event that we wish for. Winning is that we had our message out covered by the press. If you don't start thinking this way, if we're not going to win the next 112 days, we are not going to win the election.
What I laugh about is you shampoo it, and then when you comb it, it's still full of this stuff. This is God's punishment to politicians in Bolivia. And you can't say anything except thank you. They rub it into your head. It's wishing luck.
I believe that the cons for Goni are his age, something he cannot change. That he's a little bit arrogant.
Which he cannot change?
He cannot change, unfortunately. Third, that he already has been the president of Bolivia, so he has the burden of things that have not been performed. They were saying, look, the big problem you have with Goni is that he promised 500,000
jobs and he
didn't deliver.
He still thinks he did deliver.
And I believe so.
You believe in it?
Yes. Indirectly, yes. You have to have people to believe that.
¿Se acuerdan ustedes de cuando fue presidente? ¿Qué pasó en su gestión de gobierno? Comenzó ya se fueron a materia infantil, la reforma educativa, la digitalización. ¿Qué te hace pensar el tema de la capitalización asociado con golpe?
Porque se generamos más empleos. Espacio. Generamos más ingresos.
Esta actividad venía Bolivia, todo ya sale para afuera, ya nada de nosotros. Que según él, o sea, cuando él estaba en la presidencia, todo así lo color de sol, lo que dice es ya requiere volver a poner todo igual. Eso es mal.
Nunca. Está para los gobiernos y no puede cumplir los resultados más principales, los más básicos de nuestra educación. De hecho, el trabajo, por eso es importante, de las ciudades.
Actualmente ya no le permitiría a nadie. ¿Sabes por qué? Cuando era jovencito, ¿no? Alguien llegaba al pueblo así. Caminos vamos a tener, lindas, maravillas han hablado. Ahora voy, donde he nacido, no veo nada.
Ah, ya. Pero si tú vuelves antes, en Gani no tenía ningún recurso. Ahora con la participación popular tienen recursos.
All the people tell them to look at Goni while he's talking. Make sure some of them are shy, their eyes are down. Try to get them to look at him or Carlos while they're talking, okay?
Ahora, una cosa que siempre me echan en cara, que no creé los empleos, yo ofrecí 500,000 empleos. Y yo pude mostrar informes de universidades extranjeras que había cumplido mi promesa. Pero como hubo despidos para hacer la capitalización, entonces la gente dice no cumplió.
¿Cómo se siente cuando hay manifestaciones y hay familias humildes que terminan con enfrentamientos con sus mismos familiares? Mueren.
Nadie va a la presidencia para causar muerte y causar sufrimiento. Para eso, ¿qué ganas? Hay que hablar con la gente antes de la manifestación. Si tú tienes un hijo y tú únicamente lo tomas en cuenta, echa al suelo, no puede ser eso. Pero cuando están manifestando, hay que decir, señores, ahora no se va a hablar hasta que no vuelva la tranquilidad.
Goni's been called arrogant by a lot of people. Do you think he's perceived as being arrogant by people in Bolivia?
I know he's perceived as being arrogant by people. I mean, our polls show it, our focus groups show it. And look, the guy's no shrinking violet. He has a strong sense of what he believes. He has a strong sense of what the country needs. And he pursues it, and he tends to barrel through objections and opposition, and there's a side of that that comes across as arrogant. I don't think there's any doubt about that. There's a harder question about, is it arrogant to pursue policies that don't have majority support? That's part of why people think he's arrogant, which is he did some things that most people disagreed with. That's a tough one, because he genuinely felt it's what was, good for the country. One thing I give Goni credit for is that he ran exactly as who he is.
We've got a lot of work to do on Goni's image. The only bright places were on Will He Bring Change, which went up 4 degrees, and Cares About People Like Me, which went up 3 degrees. Cares About People Like Me is, that's, for that attribute, looking across different countries and leaders, that's way too low. I mean, that should be, up near 50. If you look at honest and trustworthy, big problem. It was already low, and it actually went down 2 points, from 37 to 35%, who say that describes him well. Second of all, you've still got, as I've said many times, over half the electorate who can't stand you guys. I mean, probably 55% who, the only question is how high should the gallows be?
Que quiere terminar de vender y entregar todas las riquezas naturales de nuestro país. Y por eso, con mineros, con el pueblo, estamos organizados para evitar eso.
I don't want to let Reyes Villa establish the idea, that he was the greatest mayor that ever set foot in the Western Hemisphere.
No, the other thing is he's eating into the anti-system.
Right.
Very, very serious.
Right. The Reyes Villa ad is very good. One place where it makes a mistake is it shows Reyes Villa in uniform as a younger man. And it causes people a lot of pause about, well, I didn't know he was in the military. I have worries about that. Who was he with in the military? And does that mean he's going to use the military to crack down too hard on the strikes and the blockade? So it's really interesting that people, it's just a couple focus groups so far, but it's really interesting, there may be openings, in addition to his record in Cochabamba, there may be openings about his earlier ties.
Esta es la casa del capitán Manfred Reyes Villa. Y esta. Y muchas otras más. Una millonaria fortuna inexplicable que el capitán Manfred Reyes Villa hizo en su vida militar y política. Manfred, ya pues, responde.
¿Tiene dudas eso sobre este señor? Sí, tiene dudas. ¿Qué más sabe?
Bueno, nosotros sabemos que es un ex militar. Nos confiamos.
Sí, no es confiable por eso.
Es confiable porque no lo conocemos.
Dad. Hey, Amy. Both there?
Hello.
Hello. About the focus groups and the ads.
The first ad is just that he has the house. We haven't gone up with the people suffering.
Right.
As far as the ads we make this, it was the corruption things that they more focused on.
Good.
Manfred used to be in the military and he lived on a military salary. But after being, mayor or whatever for 10 years, now he has a big, huge house and he's a very wealthy person. What do you think of that? And people makes them question a little bit. It was interesting.
What else?
On Goni and the debates, there was an email from Amy, which you're looking for guidance about how Goni should handle Evo on Friday. I sent out my thoughts on that. I don't know if others have. Yeah. I'm assuming, for example, in the case of Evo Morales, that his support is fairly strong. He's got his core supporters. They're hard to pull away. I could be wrong about that. If he's really at 13% nationally, as that Maury poll suggests, that indicates he's going beyond his base. But I don't think it's helpful for Goni to get drawn into a fight
with Evo. I think it just complicates things, gets them off message.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're not going after 3 or 4 people. We're just going after Manfred, you know, and we're taking everything we got and throwing it at him.
The thing that's gonna, that would kill us is if Manfred's becoming the concentration of all the anti-systemic and anti-Goni vote.
Let's keep in mind the strategic objective here is to get the vote that's against Goni dispersed among as many candidates as possible.
Do you think any strategy in the campaign had unintended negative results?
No. I mean, look, we talked a lot during the campaign about job creation and corruption, and sort of planted our flag on those 2 issues. You can say that maybe that raised expectations, but expectations were already incredibly high on both those things. I mean, it's like the 2 out of the 3 dominant issues. People desperately wanted jobs, and they desperately want corruption to be reduced, for good reason, both, not imagining things. So I don't think we created those needs. I don't know. I mean,
Quienes luchamos desde el camino, desde las calles, en defensa del petróleo, del gas, por la dignidad de la soberanía, y estamos acá para ganar las elecciones. Y con estas movilizaciones se defendió la democracia.
Manifestantes continúan demandando una reforma constitucional antes de las elecciones. Los marxistas aseguran que si su demanda no es atendida, es inminente un bloqueo nacional de caminos.
Quieren un buen país, que realmente sus hijos sean partícipes y que los recursos naturales sean de todos, no del Estado nomás. Porque nosotros no estamos pidiendo dinero, no estamos pidiendo ninguna otra cosa, ¿no? Sino estamos pidiendo algo que tiene que ser. Nosotros queremos que el gobierno nos atienda.
Licenciado, una puntualización, por favor, soy de la razón. El tema de la exportación de gas, ¿qué puerto sería el inconveniente? Se está planteando una consulta nacional.
No, eso no necesita responsabilidad. No puede estar pidiendo al pueblo decida una cosa tan compleja, tecnológica, económica. Eso sería una injusticia y sería quitarle el voto a la jeringa.
Macri ha manifestado que ya no tiene prioridad.
Hay mucha contradicción con lo del partido de Manfred. Y, que no es bueno que se den entre ellos, ¿no?
Están dando mucha bomba ustedes a la NFR y la NFR está subiendo el
Puede ser, pero eso tenemos que ver.
Pero sería estratégico, ¿no?
Está bien ayudar al prójimo. Especialmente a los necesitados.
We got some data. We went from being up 27-21 to being down 22-28. Huge sentiment. You ask who's spending too much time attacking other candidates. It's us all over. Our ads are seen as negative. His are seen favorably. And he's just surging on, he's very strong in attributes, and he's got just this very large pool of, even more votes to pick up. We continue to be very out front on corruption. I mean, we actually gained ground on corruption, which is astounding, given how much of an Achilles heel that was at the beginning. So, I mean, there's some openings here, and that was before the ad about his house ran. So, I mean, I think there's some sense that this guy is a little shady, and at the same time that we've gone a long way toward curing our problem on sort of not so much on honesty, because our attribute there remains weak, but on curing their concern about corruption and being committed to fight it.
Yeah,
some positive. I believe that the phrase that will summarize the complaints is that they are too rational and they lack emotion.
We feel that you are relatively cold.
Mm-hmm.
You're an expert. I want to
challenge you. Well, no, I think we've been talking about that this morning. About the way to depict Goni. I think it's important to show him with people, touching people, being part of them.
People that watch our campaign and they start to send me things. Oh, we have to change.
Sure,
it's not
sure,
going.
sure.
Okay, there is.
Sure.
Well, I don't know how you have your focus group, but my focus group, I'm not sharing with the other focus group. The problem is the level of which I interact with.
Right. I mean, I think strategically we have a good plan. You know, I think, you know, our brand is the crisis, fixing the crisis, the corruption, ending the corruption, having the capacity and the experience and the plan to do it. Now, I think the other guy's brand is change, and that's very powerful.
But I believe that at this point you are the key on it. So.
Well, we're gonna, you know, I'm here for the week, okay? We're gonna try to make some nice spots.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that won't happen, huh? We don't need that. I just won the biggest victory in Irish politics. I hate to get killed the next week, you know?
People always believe that there's a silver bullet, that there's the Holy Grail, that there's one thing that somebody knows, and if we just had that one piece of information, then all of the other problems we have would dissipate. And I don't, and people, some people choose to believe that I'm the person that has that. The idea in itself is I'm flattered that someone would think that about me, but it's completely untrue. But at least what it does is that people, if they think I have it, they'll pay attention to what I say. So what I'll do is I'll go down there and repeat everything that Jeremy or Tad or Tal has said. But because it came from me, it has some sort of cachet, or then, oh, well, James Carville said it. And isn't he brilliant to think of this, when all I'm doing is, I'm like, Jeremy, what are we supposed to be saying here today?
I think it's very important we get James down and because the big problem is a high state of panic. Carlos Mesa and Carlos Morales, they're running around. I'm starting to feel like those films where you have a guy who slaps hysterical women in a lifeboat. But I don't know, when we see that, those numbers, maybe we should all drink Kool-Aid.
Well, look, I have no doubt, Goni, I'm sorry to say it, but I have no doubt that the next numbers are going to be distressing. Part of what you want to do here, Goni, is you want to get the press to dig into the full extent of Reyes Villa's record and the negative parts.
We're working very hard with the press, and we're seeing changes. This corruption thing, I think, if it really sinks, it's going to be very powerful against him.
No, the big problem here, this is leading to a great deal of problems in the strategy room because there's grave doubts about the negative messages.
Right.
But I think it's a typical political response, soberbia.
Subversion? Yeah, subversion.
No, soberbia, that you think you're better than anyone in the world.
No, arrogance? I don't know.
Arrogance.
Yeah.
When you start going down and another person starts going up, you can't just understand the other person is very strong. It must be the strategy that's wrong, it's a hidden arrogance there, and you can see it in the numbers, that this guy's fucking strong. He's better than us. And we have to be happy that we still have time, but we have to be very conscious that if we don't kick this piece of shit down, he's going to win with 40%.
He's not going to have 40. I won't let him have 40.
Creemos que Bolivia está en la peor crisis que ha tenido en los últimos 50 años. 90% de la pobreza en Bolivia está en campo. Quiere decir, de cada 10 campesinos, 9 son pobres. También hablamos de una crisis moral, porque la corrupción es cada vez mayor, ya es hipercorrupción. También hay una crisis, no hay duda social. Tenemos todo tipo de manifestaciones de la gente que se siente marginado, y eso no puede ser.
Can you just write in Spanish simplicity, relevance, and repetition for me? A good message has to be relevant, simple, and repetitive. It's hard for people to believe that here's this guy coming all this distance, and we're paying all this money to him, and he's saying we just need to do these 3 simple things. Well, gee, we could have thought of that. The hell, I thought he was going to bring some computer and a magic formula, and you know what I mean? They were going to run a whole bunch of numbers, and we were going to sit around, and there'd be all of these, you know, people from Princeton and Stanford, you know what I mean, doing the chi-fact and the juxtaposition of the X and the regression analysis and everything. And this asshole comes in and says, look, these are the 3 things you got to do. You got to say these 3 things. You got to say them creatively. You got to say them relentlessly, and you have to say them exclusively. And people really don't care what your opinion is on X, Y, and Z. And it's like, gee, we could have thought of that.
Question will come up. Many of your opponents are suggesting we can have a constitutional convention and solve all the problems that confront us, since we obviously can't solve them with the current constitution.
Well, first of all, the Constitution is not the reason that Bolivia is facing the crisis that we face it now. It's a crisis in action, and it's a crisis that's going on, frankly, all over our region. I'm running for president because I know the kind of experience I have, and I know the kind of vice president I picked. We need from day one to have the kind of capability to start action to bring Bolivia back. Because if we don't do that, while we're sitting around, you know what's got the Constitution Convention, you're going to get a bunch of politicians going to La Paz. They're not going to know whether to wind their asses or scratch their watches. And they're going to sit down and watch the country go right down the tubes. That's why I'm running for president. We need more action and fewer politicians. You see how you take something that comes your way and you just know you can tee that one up.
Shit, you know, who cares what they're asking? The point is, what point do you want to make? And keep coming. It's like a game. In every question, you want to see how few words it takes you to get back to your point.
The journalist will start with some kind of oddball crap question and say, look, I appreciate your right to ask that question, but, you know, we're really at a very, very serious time in Bolivia's history, and I think that we ought to use this hour and a half, not talking about some incident with a sheep when I was in college or something. You know what I mean? These things happen to people.
You keep talking about this crisis. Aren't you responsible for the crisis?
Am I responsible for the fact that the Argentine economy collapsed? I doubt it. Am I responsible for the fact that commodity prices are at the lowest they've been since 1933? I hardly believe that. It's a very convenient scapegoat. I don't mind that, but I think it takes a recognition of what is bringing this crisis around. But, you know, I learned a lot in those 4 years that I was president. You know, I learned a lot in the many good things I did, and I learned a lot in some of the mistakes I made. You want to say you learned a lot from that. When you're president this time, as a result of what you learned, you can obviously be much better at the job than you were, although you want to acknowledge that you did some great things for Bolivia. So then you show growth, and then here you are back to your campaign message. We have to be totally focused. People have to have total faith that what we're doing is right. I learned from that. I understand that. And given this time, boom, boom, boom. And then you're out of that. And you're out of that, I think, better off than you started.
I don't have the script.
Yeah, you have it. And we'll have a revised script. A little voiceover, then hit the camera.
You learn a lot from being president, both from your success and from your failures. Okay. It's a slow walk. It's a slow walk. I think we were looking for a blazer with a shirt. Okay.
Open shirt, no
yes.
tie?
No tie. No tie. We were going to do it there. That would have been a tie, but over here, blue shirt would be nice. Yeah, but take your time.
Okay, the speech. It was pretty good. And in fact, probably the best there. And the he was animated and passionate on a bunch of things that he cared about. Let me just focus on strong things.
His wife said that he did a good routine on capitalization.
Okay. All right, now let's talk about capitalization. He explained it. He said we didn't sell off the country. Argentina sold off the country. They have nothing. He says we have it, we own it. The shares rise in value.
The shares are there.
No, it was very spirited. And he'd never had a sense here. This was a 71-year-old man. 72 impression. Now the problem with it, is that I don't think you can convince people in a 3-week period of this. And there was no learning. In other words,
right, exactly.
It was this was a successful initiative,
right.
which the country overwhelmingly believes was not.
Right.
That you do not come away from it with any sense of learning. And I believe
he's got to come away and say, of course it wasn't perfect. Not enough jobs were created, and that's why going forward we're going to do A and B and C.
Okay, but not perfect is not going to work. You saw it in the groups. It's not going to work. If it sounds like it's mostly successful, now there's conviction in it being successful. You know, I mean that's what he believes.
As long as he says, "Look, I know it fell short. I know it fell short."
Okay. Well, that was crowded out by.
There was no
sense of shortcomings
with the learning, the next steps, the dissatisfaction.
Right.
I agree with that.
Why are you doing this new spawn? What's the point?
I don't know. We're trying to. The thing is moving fast enough. There's a new strategy. Not mine to question why, only do or die. Hola?
Alejandro Menini.
Yeah.
Hola, Connie.
Mira, estoy en plena filmación de un spot y te voy a hacer unas preguntas medio extrañas. Nos damos cuenta que no llega a la gente si no hablas de empleos. En nuestras investigaciones, la gente cree que las empresas capitalizadas ocupan a extranjeros. Puedo usar la frase, por lo menos el 90% de los trabajadores en las empresas capitalizadas sean bolivianos, o puedo usar el 95%, porque yo no me imagino que hay tanto extranjero.
Mira, no, yo no creo que pase los extranjeros no deben pasar del 5%.
Creo que has dado la respuesta, te agradezco. Cualquier cosa te llamo. Chao. Says that we have no problem saying 90%. He said none of the companies have anything close to that.
Can I make a suggestion? What we want to say without saying it is that you know you didn't create as many jobs as you needed to, but you've learned from that experience. But you don't want to. Okay. You don't want to come out. I mean, the fact is you did create this, so you don't want to.
You know, we had 5% growth, but you can't convince them. You fired 10 guys.
Listen, I just went through this in Ireland. Okay, in the last 5 years, crime has gone down 27%. No one believed it. No one believed it. And I had to, and he had to go out, and he wanted to go out and say it. And I said, if you say this, no one's going to believe anything else. So why don't you say, listen, we've made progress, but we got a lot more to do. You know?
But this is so clear, Goni. I mean, every focus group, the first question is, what's going wrong in the country? Jobs. We don't have enough jobs. There's no work.
We thought you should do it standing up in here. You know, and basically that very first line, you know, you learn a lot as president. Just take a couple of steps to camera when you do that first line.
Cuando uno es presidente, aprende mucho, tanto de los éxitos como de los fracasos. Sé que no pude generar la cantidad de nuevos empleos que los bolivianos necesitamos. Y si ustedes me eligen presidente, tengo un plan de emergencia para hacer obras con empleo.
Anything else that stands out in this spot that made you feel better? The hope. It shows hope. Sometimes experience teaches you.
She was so hostile to privatization at the outset.
Goni has had failures as a president. I have hope in Carlos Mesa. Who else felt very positive? I did too, because he knows what he's done, the bad parts that he did.
Wow. How many focus groups do you do yet? How many rise to that level of excitement? You see one like that here, you know, where it's like, come. Interesting.
Lo único que me falta es que me hagan también.
Bienvenidos a nuestro sector de Corazón Abierto. Aquí está Gonzalo Sánchez de Lozada. Habíamos prometido candidato a la presidencia del MNRA, como siempre luciendo una linda camisa rosada, tu color preferido.
Así es, desde hace tiempo.
Okay, si pudieras volver al pasado por el túnel del tiempo, ¿qué error del pasado no volverías a cometer? Puede ser personal y profesional.
No sé, son varios.
Pero uno.
No sé cómo contestar, a ver, dame un tiempo para ver, son varios lo que he hecho, pero yo creo que, ¿sabes? Hay una cosa que yo he aprendido, aprendes de errores como aprendes de aciertos.
Claro,
a veces mucho
dice,
más...
nunca más haría eso, Dios mío, sí, o sea,
bueno,
algo así.
No
¿Qué
sé,
error?
yo creo que, no sé.
Ok, perfecto.
Hoy día los marxistas se reunirán en la capital.
Si ellos aquí en aquella época de la República han fundado esa Bolivia con una asamblea constituyente, nosotros lo que pedimos, ¿qué es lo que pedimos? Asamblea Constituyente Nacional. Ese terminito que es nacional le hemos aumentado y eso no quiere el Estado. En esa malforma de distribución económica porque ellos nomás son ricos y nosotros no.
Los protestantes presentaron sus demandas para una reforma constitucional, pero un senador dijo que una reforma constitucional es la última en su lista de prioridades.
¿Cómo se siente usted con las encuestas de esta campaña electoral?
Que las luchas sociales están siendo acompañadas por las luchas electorales. Con eso, pues, que con políticas que cuestionan totalmente al modelo y al sistema. En Bolivia estamos muy cerca, a un 52, que era la insurrección armada, para cambiar al liberalismo de aquellos tiempos.
Nosotros no tenemos nada que ver, es parte de la guerra social, de la desesperación del bonismo. Porque hay una desesperación total, como estamos primeros en las encuestas, entonces están desesperados porque están perdiendo el poder que les ha servido para servirse de los bolivianos y no servir a los bolivianos.
I think this poll, and I know we were going down a couple of points, but I read a lot of very good stuff in it. I mean, I think this is the first indication that Manfred has actually been stopped.
The only thing that really moved numbers in these elections were two things. The demand for a new face and our campaign.
Right.
It's the only two things that moved the numbers.
Yeah, the dirty war is, yielding some fruit for us finally, that we paid the dividend for it on the front end. We paid the price of doing it. But now I think Manfred is beginning to pay the price of what we did, at least in terms of the top of mind stuff from the focus groups. I think it's reflected somewhat in the, in the data.
Yo he hecho la fortuna de forma lícita o de civil.
Quedan pocos días. ¿Tiene esperanza de lograr la mayoría, pese a que ha bajado, digamos, en la mayoría de las encuestas?
No. Nosotros en las encuestas reales estamos subiendo y queremos llegar al 50%. Obviamente hay gente de poder.
What do you think were the factors in changing the electorate's opinions?
I mean, I think we sort of opened the door to people to question whether this guy was real and invited the press in to investigate some of the stuff. All the weird stuff about him being so close to the military, doubling the military budget, contradicting himself, lying about his business partner.
De manera, seguramente mañana me van a decir que soy socio de Bin Laden, una de esas cosas.
It's like getting to know someone who you're going to have to be like roommates with for 5 years. I mean, we were playing with an ad, which was, Manfred, he won't answer about his plan, he won't debate. Do you really want to spend the next 5 years of your life with a man who won't talk to you?
First time since March 25th we're ahead. Although we're basically tied, but we're up by 1 point. So after Manfred falling for about 4 weeks, we've finally overtaken him. I mean, this is just wow. I mean, a country that just desperately wants change. they're, as a country, moving back, feeling, even though we want desperately someone new and change, that the old guy is probably the best bet. I love what's happened here, which is you had a press smoked out stuff about Manfred. People factored it in, updated their feelings about this guy, and concluded that he was weird. You know, concluded that he wasn't real. There was something spooky about him. Maybe he had a little bit of a fascist streak. It's very, I mean, it's like perfect voter rationality. It says wonderful things about the voters here. Completely rational.
Yo sé que lo más importante son empleos. Vamos a hacer obras públicas. Vamos a hacerlos en los primeros 90 días.
Because there's this really feeling like Manfred, you know, was focused on the people, gonna bring change, that he was kind of a cold technocrat. Now there's this sense, this jobs emphasis. You know, it's, I think, really opened people up to, he's really focused on my problem, you know.
What about Evo Morales?
Stuck, topped off.
I think that Evo would be a good thing for you guys.
Except the problem is he's just strong in a couple of places. Which means that if he gets stronger in those places, like Cochabamba steals the Senate seat from us. This is a heartburn election. Oof. Oof.
Y Bolivia va a salir adelante, va a salir de esta crisis económica, les garantizo, estoy convencido, estoy seguro. ¡Sí que puede! 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 ¡Sí que puede!
I've been involved in a lot of races, and there's always some scenario where somebody could win. You know what I mean? If 4 or 5 things happen, but then this is the only time I've actually seen it happen. Our ambassador in Bolivia was a real idiot.
El embajador de los Estados Unidos ha hecho un anuncio dirigido al candidato Evo Morales. Vamos a...
Increíble, pero cierto. Hace unas semanas, un aspirante a la presidencia dijo repetidas veces que la embajada lo había amenazado de muerte. Quiero decirles con incuestionable claridad que esa vil acusación es totalmente falsa, es una absoluta mentira. Al único individuo al que Estados Unidos ha amenazado de muerte es a Osama Bin Laden. No sé si el aspirante a la presidencia, al emitir tremenda mentira, quiso de nuevo expresar su solidaridad con los asesinos y terroristas. Según la prensa, este mismo aspirante a la presidencia dijo en su cierre de campaña que de ser gobierno cerraría las oficinas de la DEA. Quiero recordarle al electorado boliviano que el mercado del gas de California está abierto a una Bolivia que sale del circuito de la cocaína. Bolivianos y bolivianas, abran sus ojos, que el futuro de sus hijos y de sus familias está en sus manos.
Estados Unidos, que los negocios están en peligro si es que Evo Morales está en la próxima coalición de gobierno.
Yo creo que fue fuera de lugar. Tengo la sospecha que el embajador es el jefe de campaña de Evo Morales, porque eso le ayudaba a él y creo que ha sido fuera de lugar.
Narcotraficante, asesino, y a partir del 11 de septiembre del 2001 ya soy terrorista. Eso es normal. No tengo ningún miedo, el pueblo lo sabe, y además dice, nadie cree al gobierno todo lo que dice. El pueblo no los cree. Por eso mismo no tengo ningún miedo de seguir con esa campaña, pero me alegra mucho que sigan hablando.
This Sunday we have our elections. And what the ambassador said, did this make any of you change your ideas on how you wanted to vote? Yes, some of us, yes. It brings out the rebellious part in us. The ads and all these things. It's part of marketing a product. So now, because we're rebellious, I'm going to vote for Evo Morales.
How do you feel about the way things turned out?
You always tend to think, what could I have done differently? Should we have communicated in a different way? Is there something I could have done to get people to move faster? Is there something I could have done to create more support or more understanding for these things? And so you always second guess it. And there's a feeling, you come in as sort of an interloper. You know, I'm not Bolivian, I didn't grow up there. And you come in as an outsider, and you advise people and you have an impact. At least when things work right, you have an impact. And so you do feel responsible somewhat, you know, if things go awry.
Look at this. It's the best. Watching people vote is like, it's like the one day every 5 years they have more power than anybody else. Uno más. Bueno, perfecto, gracias.
¿Dónde te encuentras?
¿Puede ayudar? Cerca del cuarto.
A ver.
MNR.
Todo esto es 48%.
Siguiente. Para más.
Mas, Evo Morales. Mas is like huge. Mas me win Coachella. These fucking numbers are from urban areas.
Just look at my predictions at the end of the day, okay? Please. No, look at my predictions.
Let's see who's closer.
I remember the tension. And then there was the sense as the night went on that we were going to pull it out, that it would stay contested, but that it looked like we won. And I remember the sense of disbelief because we had been 12 or so points behind, only about 4 or 5 weeks from election day.
There was a day where we were and the other two guys were at 21, and that happened to be election day. I'm not sure, literally, if it had been the day before or the day after, we couldn't have won. So it took, and it was not timing, you know, campaigns don't have that kind of control over time, believe me. And it's all you hear all this about, they peak too soon. You know, really, it's not, look, campaigns are, I can't say this on the air, you know. Well, the campaigns are kind of like intercourse. You don't have all that control over when you peak, you know, and sometimes you get ahead of yourself. Yeah.
I remember feeling good, that, you know, good for him, because I think he's good at being president. And I feel very strongly Ghani was the best candidate in the race by far, and the best person for running the country.
Won the election, you hadn't actually won the battle for public support?
Well, of course not. I had the legitimacy, I had the legality of winning the election. The people who were in our coalition represented a majority of those who had voted. The consultants who worked with us were people who worked during the campaign, so they know where we're coming from, what were the feelings of the people. But it's very difficult if you don't have a consensus, if you have a lot of strife. You will have a more polarized country.
What else do you think? What things are going correctly? Nothing is going correctly. There's no work. They promise, and they don't comply with their promises. Once they're in government, it's like, if I ever saw you, I don't remember you. And all the time we have marches in the streets, we have demonstrations in the streets. And today, it's even worse.
I think it was clear to Ghani as early as February, and it was certainly consistent with what we were saying, that the window was closing on him very fast. And in fact, the first things that we talked about with him when he took office was that he was in a pretty awful situation, and that he was likely to have little or no honeymoon, and that there was a real chance that things were going to go to hell in a handbasket very fast, at any point.
El líder opositor Evo Morales ha dirigido una serie de bloqueos de caminos. llamará a una desobediencia civil si Goni no se comprometía con la demanda de los cocaleros.
We had, as I say, in the month of January, we already the road blockages in the coca growing areas done by Evo Morales started bringing down my popularity because although it wasn't my fault, I had to use police and I had to use the army to keep the roads clear. And the people don't like conflict. They don't like violence.
Well, as you know, the government is working in a new budget, a new project for the budget. Who do you think that the government should consult on this new budget, for this new project? The people, the people. In Bolivia, since 1983, we started living under democracy. We were living a false democracy, and that is a great concern for us. Because if we really had a democracy, he would listen to us. Everything that the government does, they do it in the back of the people. Once things are finished, are done with, are signed, then they let the people know.
Bolivianas y bolivianos, buenas noches. Bolivia está en una encrucijada. Para financiar los fondos de contrapartida que se necesita para desembolsar la ayuda externa, la plata que nos donan, la plata que nos prestan en condiciones concesionales, necesitamos mayores ingresos. Por eso nos vemos obligados a cambiar el impuesto al IVA, el complementario. Si gana 1,000 bolivianos, el impuesto va a ser apenas 15 bolivianos. Si gana 2,000, 140 bolivianos. Es seguro que podemos salir adelante si nos unimos todos y hacemos lo que pueda para que Bolivia supere sus problemas y supere la crisis económica. Muchas gracias por escucharme. Buenas noches.
Can you believe it?
Pretty awful, huh?
I have never been in such a situation.
Where were you?
And I've been through everything.
Where were you?
Well, I mean, I was in my house. But I've been in revolutions, I've been in coup d'etats, but never in a situation in which there was no government, no police, nothing in charge of the country. Nobody was in charge of the country. Do you remember during the electoral focus groups when people said that they didn't want drastic measures?
Uh-huh.
I know you said that to Goni. I know you said that to the team. I wonder if they heard you.
Well, it wasn't that it was so drastic. It was drastic.
The way the press presented it was terribly drastic. And it was drastic in the sense that it was going to touch on those people that made less than 5,000 Bolivianos, Jeremy. And to those people, 30 Bolivianos is a lot of money. It is a lot of money.
I thought the tax increase was above 5,000.
No, it started at 880 Bolivianos. That was the problem. It should have been above 5,000. The people have awakened now, and they're willing to be aggressive. There's no way we can pay taxes, and there's no work. Where are we going to get the money? What sparked these protests? The president. But what did the president do? Well, because they offer and they don't comply. They don't even listen to us. In order to dialogue in this country, first you have to go out in marches, in protests, and then the government listens to you. Because if you don't, nobody listens to you. To me, it's been that the government wanted to sell the gas. We've been telling them not via Chile, and they keep insisting. Chile is our enemy. Do you think that Goni should resign the presidency? No, he shouldn't.
Oh, instant.
He should go out and talk to the people in the villages, in the neighborhoods.
When it keeps going another month or two like he's been going, he's probably gone. Why? Why do it that way? Why? It's needless. Why wouldn't he go out and throw himself into the people?
Well, the main discussion is that he doesn't have time.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
I don't want to be popular. I want to be a good president.
Good. So he's doing a great job now, huh? Now he's being unpopular and being a bad president. I mean, nothing's getting done. There's no support.
She's about to show them the video, and she asked...
You know, it's just so clear. Yeah, and it's not like they're saying we need $1 million. We want him to travel and be with the people and show that he's listening. It's cheap.
Trust.
It's free.
And this is reinforced also because people have fear after this arrest.
Would you ask Goni to resign? If he decides to export via Chile, yes, we would really be angry. He knows the people don't want it, and he's just stubborn about it.
Oh, I could cry.
The conflict in Bolivia will continue because our companies are privatized. As long as we don't recover, there will not be peace for the central government. The problem will continue.
Hola.
President.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
What are you doing tomorrow?
Whatever you want me to, Mr. President.
Yeah, well...
No, the agenda is we're going to...
I'm seeing Carlos Mesa at 10.
War room, Carlos Mesa until 12. 3 p.m. the presentation.
Well, if you want to do it even later, we can do it. I want to put off the presentation because the one time I don't want to see both.
These are worth not seeing.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Archive these in the museum.
I always thought I was a masochist, but when I read what could be there, I decided I don't want to see it. What the hell with that? We have to have a real serious talk about that because I think the way people are so nervous, I think you could really push it off the ledge.
Well, I want to talk to you about that. I mean, I have that concern too.
Yeah, so I don't. That's why
it's not bad to push it back though. But I think the other thing
push it back or just get it off because I think it'll cause, well, there's a lot of problems.
They're starting to go off the rails.
Yeah, starting with the VP.
I don't want to talk to you about that. I mean, people feel, we heard it in focus groups today, there's a chance for a new start. But I think we've got about 4 weeks to show real decisive action, And I just don't know if some of the people move fast enough,
Yo creo que en esta ocasión nuevamente es importante que les avise que yo estoy mandando y pidiendo a Carlos Mesa que los visite a ustedes en diferentes lugares de la República para hablar con el pueblo en sus barrios, para visitar estudiantes en sus universidades. Tenemos que ir por el camino de la paz y del diálogo.
There was just a deep feeling, that sort of the patrimony of the country was being so slowly stripped again. I mean, on top of a 500-year story dating back to the silver and the Spanish conquistadors, but also Goni's role in that they saw the privatization of industries during Goni's first term as part of that. They saw the War of 1879 with Chile when they lost their coastline as part of that. And again, these weren't things that I was unaware of. I didn't sort of go in ignorant of the history. And yet when you hear it from people, you learn a lot about sort of the dynamics of the passion behind it. I mean, it's not like facts I learn, but it's the texture of people's political passions and the texture of the sadness there about what's been stripped from them.
Vamos a comenzar, aunque no haya, porque para el futuro de Bolivia vender gas es vital. Tenemos tanto gas, tenemos potencial 100 millones.
3 weeks ago, the president's controversial gas export plan set off a series of violent protests. The catalyst for the crisis was a proposal to export natural gas from Bolivia through a pipeline to a port in Chile. Nearly 80 people have been killed in clashes between Bolivian troops and mostly poor indigenous protesters.
So how do you feel now about getting Goni elected?
I don't have any doubt now, and I didn't have any doubt during the election, that's why we went to work for him, that this guy had the best formula for helping this country rise out of dire poverty.
But don't you think it was dangerous to have a leader in office who didn't have majority support?
Oh, yeah. But, you know, that wasn't, I don't see that as an indictment of Goni. I mean, maybe it's an indictment of his consultants that we didn't get him 50%, we only got him 22.46%.
I use consultants to know what was important to people, because all they're telling you is what people are thinking, and they're trying to show you how to change the perception. But it's hard to sell people. Only in the United States can you think that advertising will fix it all. It won't. It won't. Only in the United States can you believe that people can be changed by information. Sure, communication is very important in campaigns, but you have to take into account deep-seated fears and resistances of people.
Ultimately, he thought he would be held accountable. We thought he'd be held accountable in an election, in the normal course of things, when there was a chance for him to proceed with the, the gas line, proceed with the connections to people's homes, dedicate the funds for education, all the things that he wanted to do that ultimately he believed, and we believed, that he would be judged by those things if he succeeded, by what he did.
Cada cual ofrece a su manera. Ofrecen maravillas, cielo y tierra y mar, pero al final eso no cumplen. Yo ya he visto tanto tiempo que jamás han ido peor hemos ido.
Él sí puede volver a vender y volvernos a vender a nosotros que somos los bolivianos.
Su campaña ha sido fantasía porque pintaba todo de bonitos colores.
This is about a lot more than the natural gas pipeline. People here have used the issue as an excuse to express anger and frustration with a system that promised prosperity and hasn't delivered.
Why didn't the people see Goni the way you see Goni?
Well, I think you got a lot of things. I mean, one thing is, here's a guy who's an unabashed champion of market economics, who's saying the only road forward for this country to get unpoor is through mostly private ownership and market economics. And you've got, about half the country that just doesn't buy that. And so people who don't buy that are going to say, he doesn't understand me, he doesn't understand reality, he doesn't get it.
The protest's chief puppet master is Evo Morales, who gained significant power in Congress after a boost from the U.S. ambassador in last year's election.
I feel frustrated, and I feel responsible. I think the Bolivian people are being taken for a joyride by a bunch of irresponsible populists. A lot of people who promise easy solutions by simply not pumping the gas or nationalizing industries or closing the borders, that are just blatantly false, ugly, empty myths.
Es una lucha del pueblo, carajo, y más vale que se vaya ese gringo hijo de puta de una vez antes de que su familia pague las consecuencias.
Lo ha vendido las empresas, capitalizado, digo, entonces no merecía ser de nuevo presidente.
Basta de llegar perdón, basta. Realmente la gente está ya, en unas palabras ya, muy molesto, muy molesto.
Following weeks of deadly protests in La Paz, there are reports that Bolivia's president has resigned. Gonzalo Sanxchez de Lozada, known as Goni, reportedly fled to the United States earlier today.
Bolivia's new president, Carlos Mesa, took office after weeks of violent protests against his predecessor, Gonzalo Sanxchez de Lozada.
It's been 15 years since I've driven the car. I'll get back to it. It's really very necessary because the only way you can learn your way around a town is to drive or learn the metro. The metro is very comfortable, as a matter of fact.
First question I had that I wanted to ask you was, are you disappointed?
Well, of course, I feel a sense of guilt by not having been able to stay and do the things that I think should have been done and in the long run would have been most beneficial for the people. My Vice President Mesa has offered the things that I wasn't willing to offer, and now he's in deep trouble because if he does a referendum on exporting gas, they're going to say no.
El tema del gas no puede responderse hoy sin la participación del conjunto de los bolivianos y de las bolivianas. El otro nudo que tenemos que ser capaces de desatar es la demanda de la Asamblea Constituyente. Pero está claro que tenemos que trabajar fuertemente por la recomposición de la relación entre el Estado y la sociedad que hoy por hoy está quebrada.
So can you really export your brand of democracy, your way of doing things, to such a divided country?
I mean, Bolivia is a very divided place. I guess the thing is, democracy really depends on material results. If democracy can't yield benefits for the average person is not going to have a deep philosophical commitment to democracy like we all do in a very sort of natural, almost genetic sense. You'd better find a way to make sure that it yields benefits pretty soon, and that you, where necessary, provide the countries in transition with some support so that people feel like their life is improving as the democracy takes root.
Will this experience change how you do business in the future?
I don't know. It certainly drives home, not that we didn't know this, but it certainly reminds you, what the stakes are. In Bolivia and these other places, you have a more acute sense that it really is life or death, whether you get the best person and whether he makes a little faster progress could be literally life and death for, even more people in an even more immediate sense. And that, creates a certain weight as you do your business to try to do it as best you can, but I'm not sure that makes you do it in any different way.